Welcome to Art Toronto. My name is Mia Nielsen. I'm the director of the fair, and I'd like to welcome you to our Power Talk series. This is presented by the Power Plant Contemporary Art Gallery. Today, we have artist Curtis Talwst Santiago. He's in conversation with Claire Gilman, the curator of the Drawing Center in New York. Enjoy.
Mute. I think I'm unmuted.
Okay. Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, Curtis.
Hi, Claire.
It is so nice to be here with you. And thank you to the Power Plant for inviting us to speak on the occasion of Art Toronto. So Curtis and I guess I'm coming from New York and Curtis is in Munich. So we have a very international webinar, I guess, today. So, Curtis, I think I will start by asking you, so Curtis and I did a very beautiful show together at the Drawing Center in February, which was open for 3 weeks and then had to shut down like many exhibitions across the world. And actually that was the last time we've seen each other in person, although we've seen each other remotely quite a bit. So maybe I will just start by asking you, before we kind of turn to that exhibition, what has life been like for you since March, the last time I saw you? And what was, I guess, it's funny to always go back to March now, but I feel like that's kind of this dramatic point where, things kind of change quite a bit. So, what have you been up to since then? And what was that experience like, having that exhibition and then having it close in that way?
Well, first, having the exhibition was one of the best experiences I've had working with institutions and within the art world. There's always these moments that are stepping stones that lead to new opportunities and just new understandings of yourself as an artist as you push to hopefully achieve something you haven't achieved before. And so that was exceptional. That was something very special, and it continues to grow as now I'm a board member at the Drawing Center. And so it's been wonderful. Now, what has happened since then? So much has changed. I came to Munich after the opening of my exhibition, Irrtum, at Rachel Uffner's, which was a continuation of the Drawing Center, March 3rd. And I got on a plane and I came to Munich thinking that I would go to Japan to relax for 2 weeks with my partner. And then I would be back in New York and we would experience the rest of the exhibition. But then borders closed and I decided to stay here in Munich, which was the right decision because my partner and I, we were expecting a baby, which we just had, Mr. Felix. And so it ended up, this whole moment has just allowed me to recenter my practice, to breathe, to also put things in perspective of what is really important for me as a human being, as an artist, my relationships with the people I care about, valuing a moment, because the last time we did all see each other, it was a phenomenal night of dancing and celebration after years of planning and hard work. And so if that is, for many artists who didn't get to see their exhibitions or students who didn't get to experience their grad shows, I was just thankful we got the 3 weeks, we got to install, and we've got that time together. And I've just been able to focus on the growth of this baby, which is a wonderful distraction from everything else that's going on,
Yeah, that is so true. I'm sad I have not met that baby yet, but
he'll be in your arms in next year, guaranteed. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's really interesting to me, I think, not to say that, I'm glad the show closed. I'm not glad the show closed, but I think what it wasn't just an ending. I think that was kind of a sort of beautiful thing, is that we I think were able to turn it around and say, okay, our show is not up physically, but how can we make it available to people, and how can we interact with people on the occasion of this show, technically being up, And so, you know, as you said, I think our relationship really strengthened and deepened.
Yeah.
And Curtis started doing, we did some virtual walkthroughs of the show and things like that. And you did this amazing series of live draws for us with various artists on sort of Tuesdays in the middle of the day. And then because of this sort of growing relationship, then we invited you to join the board. So, you know, our relationship is continuing. And I think it's those relationships should not be discounted, and those kind of
Absolutely.
encounters, even just like this one, should not be discounted, you know, as ways of kind of still talking about and cherishing art and creativity. So I feel like, yeah, we were able to do that, and we were able to grow something, even though
exactly, we planted some seeds. And just on a quick note, I realized too that relationships in either personal or professional, they have a long lifespan. For example, Mia, who gave the announcement, was one of the people who gave me my first exhibition in Toronto how many years ago, when she was working at another space, and she showed my dioramas when nobody was willing to give them a chance. And now years later, these relationships continue to grow, and who knows in 10 years time if you and I will collaborate again, or whenever it's on something else. And it's just, so that allowed me just to absorb that this moment, it didn't close. It just continues to evolve. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. And it has its own manifestations, and, you know, who knows what it will produce
exactly
in the future. So we actually did prepare some images of that show, and then kind of taking us from that show through to what you've been working on since then, and the 2 exhibitions that you have up right now, or that will be opening in Canada.
Oh, they're open. Yeah, they're open now.
Open.
Yeah.
So maybe we can start, if I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, here we go. And so Curtis, maybe what I'll do is I'll if you want to tell us a bit about this show, you know, what the kind of
okay.
the show was. It was, and I can kind of walk us through a few slides, a few images. I still say slides. Funny. So yeah, so why don't you, tell us a bit about the show Can't I Alter? Yeah.
So Can't I Alter was an immersive drawing installation that was the introduction to a character that I'd been developing over the last few years through my travel through South Africa and Portugal, New York, and Trinidad, and basically everywhere that I've gone, I would just continuously sketch and search for parallels, connections to this story. And so we enter the world of Sir Dingole. He is a carnival themed knight who is an ancestor. I often talk about ancestry in my work, and it's displayed through these glowing red faces, which are a connection to the Trinidadian carnival celebration of Juve. And so the first time that I was in Trinidad, I met my cousins and relatives for the first time growing up in Sherwood Park, Alberta, and we covered our faces in this red clay and went out parading in the street. So many years later, I'm in my studio and I find this aerosol and I hit the canvas with this red, and it reminds me, takes me back, we'll see it in the right corner of that image there, takes me back to my relatives. So I thought about, if I use this red paint as like a time traveling fantasy portal, like in the sense of, I was saying, well, you know, we know the term Afrofuturism, but then I would also be like playing with the idea of Afropastism, where it's like we're going way back into the culture. And so this night and these faces would be a Milan, a capriccio of history. And so as we enter this installation, you're met with this archway. So it's meant to feel like the Sir Dingole has gone on this adventure where sometimes it feels like he's been at war, he's been in carnival, he's experienced the nuances of life, and you've now entered his world, his home, and he starts shedding his armor. So in this entranceway, and I'll just note that because it was the drawing center, and Claire would always ask me when I'm explaining the idea, but where are the drawings? And so that way, it was always present in my mind. And the idea was that this installation would be made out of scaffolding and paper casts. So it's like a glorified homemade recipe of paper mache, if you will. It's a paper composite that my studio partner Brian Humphrey and I, we would make silicone molds of ancient walls, like the ancient being my studio wall that was like built in the 1800s when I was in New York. If we can stay on the archway, Claire.
I was just going to show some of those, but let's go back.
Okay. Yeah, let's stay on the archway for now. And so we would make a silicone mold, we'd make a mold of the wall and then cast it in this paper. And this is where I decided the majority of the drawings, the big drawings, would live on using charcoal. And there was a reference to living in Portugal where my studio was up near the old Moorish castle, and I would pass one of the oldest walls and loving the history of how many hands people have leaned against these things, that time and the elements have really affected these. And so that was the effect we were going for. And then we wanted to play off the idea of capriccio, which was something I also discovered in my travels when I was able to see a Canaletto exhibition at the museum, the Queen's Museum in London. And that's when the idea really became like, well, if he's mashing up time and I'm trying to mash up time, well, let's use ruins as he did and as often in Capriccio to tell this story. So this being that the Drawing Center is in New York, in a very specific part of New York, I wanted to incorporate New York elements into this world. So you still feel like, am I in New York or have I entered this portal? And so the green that we use is hunter green that you'll see throughout the exhibition, and the scaffolding is a staple of New York City, of where whenever there's construction, I think it's actually code that it has to be this green. And so from this point on, you see the armor of Sir Dingley that was first constructed in South Africa on the bottom right, and you enter the world.
Yeah. And I think, do you want to tell us a little bit about that title, Can't I Alter, where that comes from, which I think is connected to the fact that you are using paper mache, the fact that you are using scaffolding, right? These are materials of construction. And I know you've talked about how part of the point was when you walk through, we don't really know if things are going up or if things are coming down, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of the indeterminacy as well. That there is this kind of fluidity of things always coming up and things always coming down. So what does that title "Can't I Alter" mean to you?
So it felt like it could cover a few areas. Often, as I try to do with the work, where it's never like this is exactly this one thing, it can be broader. And the idea of "Can't I Alter" also came to me through more of a statement. I'm not asking a question. I'm stating this because through my travels, for example, you would see artifacts or you'd see objects in museums and you'd read the texts and you'd be like, if they can imagine this narrative, and when you know that this isn't the history of the object or the way they would place the black body, especially in museums in Europe, I would find would be so outside of the truth that I'm like, well, if they're able to do this and this becomes fact, well, then I'm going to do the same. And so what I really enjoyed about this exhibition is that you walked around the exhibition with a pamphlet that would have these narratives where they're based in truth, and then there's a lot of bullshit also included in. There's a sense of humor about it, but then when it was hopefully you would make you question when you started really reading labels at museums and spaces where this takes place.
Yeah, we have to give a shout out to our curatorial assistant, Isabella Kapoor, who wrote those texts, which were really just absolutely phenomenal. I think she had a tremendous time writing them. I think it was a lot of fun for her to do it. But I think as you say, I mean, I think that's really important that there was a light touch to it. It was approached with humor, but also, these are serious issues, what I mean? That, as you say, that histories are, that we need to kind of think about the stories that we are told with skepticism, or to be aware and make our decisions for ourselves and not just trust what is kind of told to us. And I think that that's sort of the idea behind the show too, that we, that to make us aware that histories are kind of written and rewritten all the time. But also there's a kind of hopefulness there too, right? So that, this is in some ways, I think another important part of the show is that you don't really know what is a memory and what is a projection, right? What is something that's kind of from the past and what is Sir Dingley's hope for the future. So there's also that hopefulness there, right? If you can rewrite things, then maybe the future can be different.
Let's move forward to a few of the objects. I was thinking of, like, as we talked about Kentai altar and the use of material, the panels, the tin panels, like these here, which are unfortunately hard to see the details, but these panels, so when you came into the exhibition and you'd be met with the entranceway, as also as if they were like tapestries hanging behind you, when you would turn around, you'd see the wall text, and on either side of you, you were flanked by the he knight and the she knight. So they're the ancient ancestors, almost like looking like the carvings on medieval tombs of royalty. And but these materials here were just it's the tin roofs. You can see it, yeah, there in the you can see it in the corner there. Is like, again, found objects. The scaffolding was found. That was important to me because I feel like that plays so much into my work, from the dioramas, how I entered that of finding objects and then things that are discarded, and then kind of repurposing and trying to elevate them. I really loved how these kind of transformed from these old tin roofs that you'd see in restaurants into these objects that kind of feel like relics.
Yeah, totally. And they feel like relics, but then you're also using the spray paint, which is still feels very futuristic in some weird way, spray paint, even though it's not, I mean, it's been around for a while. So there's that weird back and forth between, again, it feels like something from the past, but it also feels like it's this flash into the future. We can look through a few other, tell me when you want to stop. This is giving you a broader view
of the walkthrough. And so pulling in ideas, this is a great angle here. Yeah, we'll stay here. Here we see in the cutout, as they would in a construction site, you'll see a cutout where you can look into. We chose to place the diorama, and many of the Canadian folks that are aware of my practice, I think they more know me for the Infinity series, which we'll talk about because there are 2 exhibitions up in Canada right now. But to the left of that, then you see the fruit tree, the orange tree. And that was I loved that I was able to bring Trinidad and all these places into the space. And so this orange tree was reference to the orange tree that was in my grandma's yard. And my nephew, who is a brilliant artist, came to the exhibition, and he said that, he goes, it's not so much that he's like the way you use materials, he's like how you use materials to storytell. And so, I wish there was time I could sit and tell you an anecdote about almost every moment in this exhibition, because it really, in the sense, was just was storytelling.
And I think that's also where all these different layers come in too. The fact that there's drawing, the fact that there is sculpture, the fact that there is, painting, and there's so many different materials, and each of those kind of, I don't know, you relate to them in different ways, and they sort of tell a different story. You know what I'm saying? And yep. That's all part of this narrative that you're building, the kind of different materiality of things. Okay, we want to make sure we have time to get to all the other things we're going to talk about. So
sure.
Keeping my eye on time.
So here's the large wall works.
These are some of the wall panel works that you were talking about before, that you made cast on the wall of your studio and other brownstones in Brooklyn. Just stop me if there's any place you want to stop, or we can just kind of scroll through.
We'll scroll through, yeah.
And you can see the different materials Curtis uses here in terms of the drawing directly, and then spray paint.
Charcoal and graphite was going to be the primary, because again, hearing Claire's voice being, will there be drawings? And I think still for me, my favorite material to work with still is charcoal. And to have it on this and to work on these surfaces, I think that and again, I just have to let go of the fact that photographs do not do these works justice. They are meant to be touched and viewed up close. And so here it is, we've built, I've started to view them almost as like tapestries or patchwork quilts, because on the bottom right you have really chunky rocky wall, but then right above it it's cinder block, and then to the left of it is we made molds of like Brooklyn brownstones, so you could really, there's always this connecting point back to New York. And then we'd seam them together, and to stand in front of them, I feel they really did feel like walls and solid. And I wish we could have seen this.
When you touch them, they also are like paper, so it gets to the
it fools the eye. Yeah,
well, the eye, exactly, which is sort of part of the show, also. In a sense, that fooling.
And these are all dreamscapes, like almost like acid trips in a way, where you're not looking at one narrative on, you're looking at different moments, again, moving through time. It's like the idea of Sir Dingley who's come home and he's exhausted and he falls, he crumbles to the ground, and he just starts having flashbacks of different moments. And so that's what the compositions are made of.
Right, and there's that tension between the drawing and the spray paint. I think that kind of going back and forth between the present, and actually a good example of that. I'm just going to skip over this,
Sure.
even though I love this, because I want to get to these sketchbook pages. Is in a way the drawings are I think these sketchbook pages, which were hanging on the back of one of those ways, are this kind of moment of reality in a sense. This is very much his kind of the tangible materiality of what, in a sense, he produced on these voyages. So the drawings have the sense of being kind of more anchoring and more in the present in a certain sense. And the paint that is more this sort of flash into the past or into the future, which I think is really cool, that kind of different temporality that you're able to achieve for these different materials. Okay, I'll just keep scrolling through some of these.
And this, again, looking at this exhibition again, my eldest brother has always drilled the idea of gratitude into me. And just looking at those sketchbook drawings, I am so thankful that I had the opportunity of now being in lockdown where we can't move so freely, that for how many years I was able to sit and make one of those drawings in a little cafe in Portugal and go to Spain to draw and do and visit all these places. And that's just like, I think that that's a part of my practice, not only now with family, but things have just shifted. So for me, these are really, they're really sentimental and nostalgic, because I can remember where I was and just a different time that I've just had to surrender now. And that's fine.
And your work has changed in a sense, or you're working on different things because of where you are.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go more quickly to make sure we have, because we have a lot of images and we have a lot of other images not related to this show. So I'm just going to move quickly. Curtis, do you feel like you want to show the video, or do we not have time for that?
I think we have time.
Okay.
Because we have time. It's a minute.
So it should work, unless I just absolutely can't figure out.
No, it should work.
How to do this. This is it.
There we go. Yeah.
So this is the video that when you proceed, basically you arrive at this place in the exhibition. Oh, why is it not? Okay, where there's an inner chamber where this video plays.
Brother got she in a heart, and he look up every door. Then he put she on a cart, and he snapped her. Oh no, hey, cause she went down,
There we go. That was a real nostalgia trip for me watching that. That's amazing. And this is like an ongoing, oh, sorry, I was trying to move. Yeah, this is an ongoing, or this is one chapter in an ongoing narrative, potentially.
Well, yeah, but again, I'm just having to respond because the next chapter was supposed to be the second suit of armor as he explores Sir Dingley's world. And the idea behind Sir Dingley is that, again, he's very playful and he's a little naive, but he's very optimistic, and the worst can still seem like the best to him. And the next character that comes to play is the character that I started, as I started to do more and more research and finally saw the painting that inspired a lot of this work, Chefferie del Rey, where he begins to be aware that history isn't so rosy, and even when you want to paint the victors as the victors, you start to dig and you're like, oh my god, this is just messy and it's dark and so the next character begins to introduce the realities that Sir Dingley didn't really want to address.
Right. Well, if we need to live with the first chapter and the joyous spirit for a little
Yes,
while longer, I'm okay with that.
absolutely. I'm okay with it too. Yeah, I'm okay with it too. And this, the video was shot at an installation that was done near Cherry Beach in Toronto for the Toronto Biennial, their first biennial. And I built the Juve Temple, which would act as a time portal that would bring Sir Dingley to the different worlds and brought him from here to the drawing center.
So then at the same time, I'm just going to take us out of this show, I think, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
And maybe we don't need to talk about the work in the
no, it's just yeah.
But just to mention, because I think this is really cool, that at the same time as you had the show at the Drawing Center, you had this show with kind of additional material that you called an erratum, which means an error, which I just think it's cool. You know, it means an error in printing or writing, or a list of corrected errors appended to a book or published in a subsequent issue of a journal. So, you know, it's sort of the, instead of an appendix, which means kind of just additional materials, it's this list of corrected errors, which just goes back to that idea that we already talked about, you know, histories being written and rewritten. So it's almost like you're even kind of questioning or asking us to question your own exhibition at the Drawing Center. Like, okay, that's not definite. That's not the definitive answer. We made some errors there. Here are the correct errors. And so I just love that idea that, you know, you're building that idea, you know, you're looking back and questioning something that you've already made or already produced. And so here we'll just scroll quickly through.
And I have my conversations with Magdalene Asimakis, a curator in Toronto, to thank for that title and Can't I Alter. Through the many conversations that we'd have, she'd be like, you've said this in the past. What about this? And what about this? And she definitely is always, when I need to title things, I'm like, I will call her up. I'm like, I need some of your labor. And we'll chat. And she ends up always hitting me with something.
I didn't know that. That's great. They're both amazing titles. So yeah, I was very impressed that with those titles. And now I'm impressed by her ability with titles as well. Okay, so we're just going to look through this. And then I think we're going to arrive at back in Munich. And
yes,
what you started doing. And you told me that the first works you started making when you were back in Munich were these. Well, first you talked about how you returned to dioramas, which I think is interesting in itself. And then specifically these dioramas of clowns. Yeah. So maybe just tell us a bit about why the return to dioramas.
Okay, so in New York, I had a large studio. I had a studio assistant. Even assistant is an understatement, my partner in crime. And we were just working at a frantic pace around the clock, and that was what it felt so good. Then getting here to Munich and everything being forced to slow down because of COVID. And at that time when I first arrived, I had a little corner of the kitchen table just to draw and to sketch. And Anna's uncle, who is an amazing artist, said, well, I have an extra room in my studio space. Why don't you come? And it was a tiny room. And I would spend my afternoons there just thinking, what could I make? And when I had little resources and little space and only a little bit of space, that's when the dioramas first developed. So I was like, let's strip it right back down to the basics. But this time, from learning through the casting and the use of all the different materials, I wanted to elevate the craftsmanship and really focus on the idea of beauty and really spend, because everything seemed so dark and the world felt really ugly. And I was like, I don't want to make dioramas necessarily directly about COVID or more police brutality. We are having these conversations, and these things are where people are aware and are becoming more aware, and need to become even more aware of these things. But I didn't want my art at the moment to be doing that, because I feel like it would bring me down into a low place. Because when I'm consuming, like, I already made a point never to watch any more of the videos of unarmed Black people being killed. I just like, it's murder porn, and eventually you know it's like, oh, I know where this is gonna go, and it really impacts me in a different way, being a Black man, and so I thought about the clowns, the tears of the clowns. I started thinking about all the songs with clowns in them. Then I started watching old clown videos of French clowns who even in their sadness, you're laughing in their sadness. And I kind of felt like that's exactly what I needed to do. I needed to just to laugh at what the world has handed us. Because even though I've been handed a hard hand, it's still not the worst hand I could be given. You know, I'm still in a very great place. So there has to be some joy behind this sadness and darkness. And I think clowns do that perfectly because they can be scary. They can be adorable and funny. They can just be like, and here we see, you know, in African American culture, there's the term clowning. Are you clowning me? And I was almost asking the world, are you clowning me? Here we go. I was prepared that the drawing center was going to be this jump off because I've still, and it's like this thing that I don't know, like no matter what happens in my career, I still always feel like I didn't, I'll just flat out say it, that like Canada is not really checking out what I'm doing. And that's ego. That's full on ego. Like, because there are so many amazing artists in Canada killing it right now. And it was always this thing of like, you know, you know? So I thought like this was going to be that, okay, now this will introduce me to the international stage, because when I mentioned the drawing center to curators, they're, the conversation becomes different. And then it didn't pop off the way it did. And for artists listening, just being candid, I think we should talk about finances and things like that. The Drawing Center cost me, with the help of Canada Council, I received a lot of money. The Drawing Center put in a lot of money. My gallery put in a lot of money. It was an expensive show, the most expensive show I've ever done. I was allowed to like imagine and go big time. And then expecting sales right away, expecting that when Rachel's show would open up, because I've always sold things at shows, sell, and then nothing sold. And now since things have shifted and we have movement, but at that time so much just became like, what was the what was the point of using so many resources and like environmentally, all these things? I started to really, and then I was like, well, what can you control? This small medium. And then my goal became to now like raise the level of my dioramas to an insane level amount of detail and craftsmanship. I want in the next period of time with these exhibitions coming up, that you open it up and it feels like you're looking at a little Goya, the way it's painted, the light and the dark, and really focused on light and shadow. And so now my obsession has become just technique and craftsmanship, because I can't control the politics. I can't control the art market. What I can control is what I put into the work. And it has always been what has moved me forward.
I mean, that's so interesting too, to think that you've gone, you know, you made this enormous work, right? Because the installation, it's almost like you made a diorama.
Yes, life size.
You know,
yeah.
Yeah, you made a large diorama, but you know, having experienced what happened with the shutdown and all of that, you now have gone back to the small. In a weird way, the diorama is about control, right? Because when we look at it, I mean, for a viewer as well, you know, it's a complete and contained world that feels like we kind of can grasp it, even though we're not in it, right? We can kind of grasp it in a way. So it's interesting that, you know, feeling that sort of loss of control brought you back to the dioramas. But I hope you don't feel really like, what is the point? Because I think
absolutely not. Absolutely. Yeah. That was the moment. And I quickly shook myself out of this woe is me mentality, and like what was, because again, what time has proven to me when I look back on, I don't know, like I hope that my career is long. Like, well, I can't even hope it. It will be. I'm an artist. This is what I do.
Right.
And this has time to breathe. There'll be opportunities. There's already been talks of showing it elsewhere. But even aside from that, when I look back 15 years from now on that work, I was making work that was me essentially wanting to manifest having a family. I was making works in Portugal, living this beautiful bachelor life of like, but the seed that I wanted was family. I wanted to have a partner and I wanted to have a child. And I started drawing these ideas and painting these ideas. And before that exhibition closes, my partner is pregnant. I meet someone, and this takes on so much meaning to me. Also, I know the documentation lives on. The book is beautiful. The book is to have Norbuse contribute, like,
Yeah,
I've just scratched the surface, and I am viewing time differently, and it's just to like, and having Felix allows me to view time differently. And again, like, we did something special. And I think when you know you've done something good, and Canadians tend to be humble, you're allowed to feel it, and you're allowed to say it and own it. And that exhibition was awesome, and how it germinates and moves forward. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, exactly. And I feel like, you know, you achieved something major in pulling it off. You know what I mean?
I know.
Everyone that could do that, you know, you could have put all these resources into it, and it might not have worked. Yeah. It might not have been everything that you hoped it would be. But now you have this experience behind you that, you know, no one can take away from you, that you know things. That
absolutely.
Put what, you know, I think, I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for you, but I feel like it was exactly the realization of what you and I were talking about. It was our imagination. It really visualized what we had been imagining so completely. And that's just a major accomplishment, you know, that now you know you could do it again. You know what I mean? You get to the point where you want to work large again. But right now, you're working on the smaller dioramas. So we'll scroll through the cloud. These are just incredible, Curtis. I mean, they're just amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, they're just, anyway. And then your next series was about basketball.
Yes.
And that because you said you were starting to play basketball. You were playing basketball when you arrived in Munich, right?
Yes, because I didn't have any friends. And there's few sports that you can really, outside of exercise and yoga and things, that you can do by yourself. And I was like, oh, I can grab a basketball and I can go shoot. And I found a court, because a lot of the courts were blocked off because of quarantine, but I found one that was tucked away. And every now and then other people would come, and you could be over there and we could communicate through the language of basketball. We didn't have to talk close. We'd be like, oh, nice shot. We didn't have to speak the same language. And it was near this park where then I would just go lay in the grass and just look up at the sky and just be thankful. I had healthy food. I had a safe space. I could ride my bike everywhere. And I had this outlet to get my body moving, because for the bulk of the drawing center preparation, and I was just in the studio, and I was very just ride my bike 5 minutes to the studio. And this just opened up so many things for me, because I wasn't tested, but I'm pretty sure when I got to Munich, I had COVID.
Right.
And my lungs were doing things that they had never done before. And through my reading and research, they were like, and Munich was like, people get active, go out there. And so I was like, well, if I start pushing my body and pushing my lungs and being physical, this will be helpful.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank goodness you're okay now. I love this figure. We're not going to talk about it because we don't have time, but I just noticed this purple figure looming on the wall. I'm going to need to ask you about that at some point, because that's pretty incredible. And then this brings us to one of the shows that is currently on view in Canada.
Yes.
Liming at the Art Gallery of Alberta. So maybe
with Lindsay Sharman, at the AGA, the Art Gallery of Alberta, my hometown, in the city that I grew up in, Edmonton. And liming is a Trinidadian word for gathering, socializing, being together. And so as I started to think about, how we are limited with our liming ability to be together right now, I started to imagine the part through imagination, not looking at photographs, the images that would happen in my basement on the weekends when the men would come from working up in the oil rigs up north. And so the idea is that within the installation, I'd create 4 dioramas that are built from memory of, and so here we have, if we just stay on this one. So in my family's bungalow in Sherwood Park, Alberta, in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, we had this orangey green shag carpet, and you had the 70s orange bar, and we would have these Caribbean homes would have a dance floor. You'd have a bar. Some friends had DJ booths, or we'd have a makeshift DJ, but some people actually had DJ booths with a little glass and a speaker and a microphone and everything. And so I wanted my work, because I always like to see how my parents react. I wanted this to have to transport my parents back, because they're kind of feeling down about COVID right now. They're in Trinidad, unable to move, and in some places restrictions are way tighter than other places. And so as soon as my mom saw this, she was like, oh my God, the velvet painting of the Afro woman in the background. I remember when you were little, that used to terrify you, and then you fell in love with her. And just right down to the liquor bottles on the bar, that red and white bottle, my parents still have that bottle, and because we don't really drink, and that bottle was given to them on my christening. So it's like, it was just, I just really wanted, it was a way for me to connect with family. And then the hopes was that when people came to the exhibition, there'd be a patch of dance floor, where now I'm really starting to play with audio more from our exhibition using video and audio, that when you go on the dance floor, that song Gunugu, which was playing in the drawing center video, you can hear it only when you're on the dance floor, and then when you step off, it begins to fade like a memory. And then around the exhibition, you have the 4 dioramas on the plinths that are either the 70s orange, or that wood wall, the fake wood veneer finish that a lot of basements, rumpus rooms would have.
Oh, so incredible. And did you so do you base these on photographs, or are these just
no memories, just memories, thinking about uncles, the sweater that my uncle always wore, and thinking about outfits that I would see, and that kind of stayed with me. I remember my dad's favorite shirt that he had, and then I wanted that feeling of, just because I've stopped working from photograph, because then I'm locked into that reality. If I'm going to work from just imagination, I found in my paintings, it loosens me up. It allows for when representation, when you can get locked into the idea of, I was having a conversation with Ambera Wellman about this, is that when you get locked into the idea of representing something, you lose the chance to really have that magic with the painting. And so that is what I'm really pushing for, because the work is already figurative, but so how can I free myself up in both painting, drawing, and sculpture? And that's when I'm just like, okay, no more references. You know what you saw. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally, I mean, that's so interesting too, because I mean, it just changes it to, like, if these were done from photographs, then it just becomes about, as you said, recreating something. It becomes about that act of copying the photograph or something. But when you're actually making it from memory, then that sense of recollection just has to be infused in the work.
Yes.
And that's just there. And that's why we feel it so much. It's like this, there's just that sense of kind of feeling your way towards something somehow.
Feeling my way towards something is the essence of my drawing practice. That's what I realized, because I've been trying to, like, I've started gridding things out, and I was working on a family portrait where I did a grid, and then I just stopped working on it because I was losing that feeling of working towards something,
Well, that's what drawing is in its essence, right? It's a way of working towards something. It's a way of investigating that. That's what I love about drawing, because it's not about finish, right? It's not about closure. It's about that spirit of investigation, which is exactly what your work in general is about. That's really cool. And then I think this brings us to the final show, final series of slides we have, which is of this series of Infinity Rooms. And I think we do have a video here, though, don't we? I think.
Is
that part of this series, or is that a different?
Dog and Lamb is in this show, and so why I created that little photo with the audio, which I don't know if we have the audio, is because in this exhibition, I was pushed just to try new ideas, and the component of sound, the idea of sound is something that we brought in now, where when you walk up to the podium, there's speakers underneath the podium that are very low, and only when you lean in can you hear, which I wrote freestyle poems about all 20 pieces, because this exhibition is also meant, this will be the first time where people are able to put on gloves and pick up the work.
Oh, wow. I think we do have the audio. I'm going to try playing it. If it works.
Under the big full moon that lit up the pitch black, I wonder how long it took Lamb to convince Dog it was the perfect night for skinny dipping and making love. Dog being shy, Dog being nervous, Dog being hesitant, felt now was the time to howl at the moon, to be free, to be wild, to return to its canine self, and to do as it pleased. Lamb has always been so cunning, so convincing, so soft.
I mean, that is just, I get chills when I listen to that. How did I not know that you were a writer? I mean, that's just like, I don't know. You are a man of many talents. I will say.
Quarantine is bringing things out, and I'm so blessed to have a partner who is also an amazing curator and an art genius, where she said, like, your voice is such a huge part of you. Why are you not connecting them? And so I made a few, and then I let her listen to it, and she said, no, this is, because I kept talking about how do I allow these dioramas, how do I add layers to the diorama? How do I, without it being forced, without it being gimmicky, how do I continue to have these evolve? And then I tried the poetry idea, and it worked so well. I've been so inspired by Janet Cardiff. And so then it turns out, as life's kind of synchronistic, that a curator that I've been talking to about a possible project in Berlin, she worked with Janet Cardiff for many, many years. And I dropped this idea on her, and she was like, oh, yes, this is how it can be done in various ways. And it's just like, I think that's the direction for me, definitely, is to, because when I told you before, if I sit down with a pencil and a piece of paper and try to write those words, all my trauma in school with being mildly dyslexic and all these things build up and my hand freezes. I'm a person who's of the moment. And if I allow that, I surprise myself, because I didn't think I would be able to write a poem like that. So this has been an eye-opening for me as well.
I mean, that is so exciting, Curtis. And I think, I mean, if I'm understanding you correctly, the idea of creating some sort of immersive audio experience where you're walking through and experiencing these dioramas and hearing this kind of as you go through, that's actually such an incredible way of in a sense, creating that same kind of immersive effect that you created in Can't I Alter, but without all the money, without having to put all the money into it. Because it's just your words and it's in your imagination. I think I want to see that show. So please do that. That sounds amazing. Okay, I think this is a good time to stop the share and open things up to questions from the viewers. And I guess there are two ways to put in questions. You can put them in the Q&A or the
I think we prefer the Q&A. And but if things somehow do end up in chat, we were told that we would be forwarded that. So
right. Okay, so I'm just going to look at, let me just see, and I'll just talk. I know sometimes you know, it takes people a little while to ask questions, so I'm happy to just continue talking. I could talk with Curtis all day, so if you don't have any questions, that's fine as well. We can keep talking till our time is up. But so I'm just looking a few, well, just someone who just gave us a piece of information.
Yeah.
Question, but they're saying Wooden Wall is a product called Buckingham. Do you know?
That's good to know. I didn't know that, and that's good to know, because when I was trying to hunt for the real stuff, it was getting difficult. But knowing that, I'm going to write that down.
Right. Very cool. Okay, I still don't. Oh, here comes another. Here comes something. Comes from Mia Nielsen. You have a performance background. Do you see that coming back? Do you see that coming back to your work through the spoken word?
I still don't know. I don't know how that, because then it becomes about my body, about my energy, and that actor. I think what works with the sound is that no one was around me to witness that, and that tone and how it was delivered was a one take, and it felt so natural. I guess I could, I think with rehearsal, I could get it, but I still don't know yet. I love the idea of just the work and the audio doing the lifting. And maybe if I was to do a book and do a reading of something, that might be, but for now, I love separating me more and more from my visual, more and more from the work.
Interesting. Okay, someone says, beautiful work. Did you animate your dioramas in your video? like as in a stop motion animation?
That is the goal, but no, because again, the video with the audio was just to show Claire play the audio for Claire, and so then she could see which diorama I was talking about. But through that, I was like, oh, and that was just done on my phone. I'm like, well, with a little more fine tuning, we could really move this forward. And I've written a proposal to do combining AR, augmented reality, and stop motion and VR and these things to bring some sort of life to the works, and to again have you be able to enter the world in a way that doesn't feel gimmicky, and technology isn't the trick. It actually, you know, it fits with with the work. So, but these are ideas. Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I think I'm thinking about that because one of the things that's so wonderful about the dioramas is that they aren't completely, you know, that they are these frozen moments. So I don't know, you know, how that would work to animate them and make them realized, you know, in a certain way. But I think it'd be certainly very cool to try and see what comes out of that. I thought I saw another question come in here. No.
Would I do a storyboard for that? Definitely. I would write a storyboard. Yeah. As I kind of sketch storyboards for the dioramas when I'm making them. Once I've developed the characters, I was doing a series of sketches to kind of show movement, of giving me ideas for compositions. And I'm finding that in the exhibition I have coming up in the summer in Italy, the curator wanted to show small drawings, tiny sketchbook drawings of the dioramas. And yeah, so yes, they are. To answer your question, yes, I would do a storyboard.
Okay. Oh, that's just a thanks. So any other questions for Curtis? I mean, we're coming to the end of our time. So, but I just give a few more minutes in case anyone has any questions. Curtis, it's so good to see you here today.
You too, Claire. You too.
Germany is entering another lockdown potentially, so it'll be interesting to see what, you know, we'll just have to go.
I know we'll still be able to ride our bikes along the Edythe, and I'm in a city building where my studio, it's this organization called Platform, and they've told us that no matter what, we will still, because we have individual studios, we'll still be granted access. So as long as I'm able to take Felix and go for walks with Anna and get to my studio for a few hours every day, I'll be, you know, and have access to great food, healthy food. That's all I can ask for. And we will ride this out, and we will get through this. And you as an American, and all the Americans I really care about are entering. Yeah, I'm just sending energy, sending prayers, and really thinking, I'm hoping that things go the way that a lot of people want them to. Yeah, a lot of my loved ones want them to.
It's a tough day today, but yes, that is what we are hoping. And but you know, I know that we have there is the love of friendship, and that's remains, and so we will press on, I guess, no matter what happens. Yeah. I guess that's all then. It was so nice. Thank you all for coming. I guess I guess I officially end the event and say, yeah, thank you all for being here, and I hope you get a chance to see Curtis's shows in Canada.
And I would like to say thank you, Mia. Thank you, Gaetan at the Power Plant. Excellent exhibitions at the Power Plant right now. Mia, great work with Art Toronto. David, I see you're there. Great to see you, David Liss. And yes, hopefully I will be in Toronto and Canada soon. And yes, thank you for taking time to hear Claire and I speak about what we love.
Yes. Thank you also for inviting me to speak with Curtis, which is always a great pleasure for me. So thank you all. And I guess that's it.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Yes. Bye.
Ciao. Auf Wiedersehen.